Hi, back for another video. Probably going to talk about something pretty boring today. The law. That's what we're going to discuss. And I really like that verse. I threw it in the last video, but it didn't really go into the detail that I probably should have went into. And so I'm just kind of just going to do this pretty off the cuff. So the verse that I had thrown in the last video that I thought we should look at was iniquity is shaped by the law. And so that was found in Psalms 94:20, and I have three renderings of this verse, so I'm going to read them to you. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? Can a corrupt throne be allied with you, a throne that brings on misery by its decrees? And Psalms 94:20, can a corrupt throne be your ally, a throne that makes evil laws? So we're talking about the law here. And it's saying that it's through the law that sin is imputed, right? So if we look at the Old Testament law, they tell us that those are from God. Are they from God? Well, when Moses come down from Mount Sinai, he had this tablet with 10 commandments written on it. And when he got mad at when he saw what the people were doing, he literally cast them to the ground. He was angry. And at one point when the nation of Israel got so far removed from God and from what was expected of them, they no longer knew how to approach God. And they found this book of law one day when they were sweeping out the temple, cleaning out the temple. They had started to return back to the Lord. And in that was their way in which they were to hold the temple ceremonies and whatnot. Otherwise, they would have never known how to do this. And they'll teach you, at least the rabbis or the Pharisees, I believe, taught oral law. And that was to say that whatever Moses wrote down, they were claiming that there was actually these set of oral laws that Moses had been instructed to give by mouth and hand on that way and not write them down. And there came a point where, they determined that they were going to write these oral laws down. Well, now if we reason what we've just been told here out, and if they got so far removed from God that they no longer remembered how to approach God through ceremony in the temple, and they only began to understand this when they swept out the temple and was cleaning the temple and found this book of laws, then how did they know what the oral law was? You know how they knew? They made it up. They made it up. That's what they did. Men made these laws up. And we've hit on some of those man-made laws, one of which is the law of bitter waters. Because you see, God don't contradict God. Man contradicts man. He can do that, and he's really good at it. And one of the ways that he contradicted himself was in two laws in particular. And I'm sure there's more there. I just haven't done a lot of research into them. But one of them was the laws of bitter water. The law of bitter water, it was called. And I think it was found in Numbers 2 or 5. I'm not sure. Let's look right quick, okay? And so this law of bitter waters, the husband, could bring his wife up with no witnesses whatsoever. Just a jealous heart. It says if he had a jealous heart and thought something was going on, he could bring her up. All right? And, but you know what the law says in Deuteronomy. We do know what the law says. It says, by the witness in the mouth of 2 to 3 witnesses, the truth will be verified. That's what it says. And yet a husband could bring his wife up on this charge of jealousy that he had in his heart. And he could force bitter waters down her throat, is what it acts like they actually did. So I believe when a husband no longer wanted his wife, this is what it looks like to me. He would use this man-made law that was supposedly from God. And God addresses this law, I believe in particular, in Malachi 2. God says, you hide violence in your skirts. Well, that's God saying, you hide violence under the law, your man-made law. You wrote it. I said I made one, male and female, body and spirit, and you are equal under that law. Equal. So she's actually attacking this law in Malachi 2, I believe. And you see, she says, you use violence to attack my seed. That's what she says in Malachi 2. And she's addressing the law of bitter waters, which is found in Numbers 5. And it starts at verse 11. Wives suspected of adultery. But you see, all the husband had to do was to think an evil thought. That's really all he had to do about his wife. And under this law, it was stipulated he could bring her before the priest. And you know what? It's just absolutely stupid to think that these women who knew they were innocent was going to drink down this bitter water willingly, knowing what her husband was or what he thought of her. I mean, there's sense in reasoning here. They were using violence to force this bitter water down a woman who 9 times out of 10 was probably innocent of any crime whatsoever. But her husband, who no longer wanted her, probably never did love her. Lusting after a whore across the border, says, how can I get rid of her and still walk away looking good here? Wow, the law of bitter waters will do that. I'll take her to the high priest, I'll hand him a little bit of cash, and we'll force that bitter water down her throat. And what this bitter water did is it caused her so that the woman could no longer bear seed. So they were attacking the woman's seed here. And it says it would cause her thigh to rot out. Now, I didn't research that. I didn't go in and look at it clearly. But to my way of thinking, it would probably cause death. Unless they had something that they could heal it with or whatever, it would certainly cause death for these women. So they were attacking women under the law, and they were using the law, violence under the law, to do it, to commit this horrible act with. Now, the fact that a husband could bring his wife up on a ridiculous charge for no other reason than that he had this feeling of jealousy in him completely defies that God-given law wherein the truth will be established in the mouth of 2 to 3 witnesses. But it doesn't talk about women. No. It doesn't mean women. Oh no, I'm over you. A sinner's over you. A sinner over a sinner. Well, guess what? The ditch is coming. The blind leading the blind? I don't think so. It's the Spirit that is to lead us. Christ tells us this. Now, the other law that we find that God just totally revamped for absolutely no reason, or not even gave a reason why, which is a lie. It's a lie. God says, you are not to take a wife or a husband from those surrounding nations that you conquer, because in the day that you do that, they're going to lead you away from me, from the true and living God, in the day that you do that. And you know what? Less than 15 chapters later, that law is overruled. It's supposedly by Moses. God says, okay, if you're going to take a wife from these conquered nations or whatever, you can do that. And, take off the old clothing and let her be for a month. But after that, and in so many words, this is what it says. You can go in and rape her. That's what it sounds like to me. And then if you decide you don't want her, you're not allowed to sell her as a slave. You have to let her go free. Oh, pat on the back for those men who thought to write that in the law. You can't sell her. After you rape her, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like God's given them the right to go into a woman less than a month after her captivity. Now, how many women do you know is going to go, sure, go for it? Don't you think she's going to fight him? And after you've laid with her and then you determine you don't want her for your wife, then you have to let her go. You can't sell her. Oh, well. There we go. Pat on your back. Does that sound like God? That sounds like men writing laws in there. That's what that sounds like. And then what does Hebrews say? Let's go to Hebrews 7:12. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. And so we went over here and we said, can a corrupt throne be your ally? A throne that makes evil laws. That's what the Old Testament law is. It frames iniquity. It creates sin by its decrees. That's what this law does. And it creates violence under the law. It's perpetuated by men against, yes, other men, but 9 times out of 10 against women. And they think they're justified to do this because, well, they're stronger than us. It's God-given. Really? Perhaps our testing is greater than yours. And you know, if you've been empowered with greater strength, then your testing is great also. Because you are not to subjugate us. That's what it says. You're not to do that. But they do it. And they use this weak excuse that they're stronger than us. Well, we've been weakened because I don't believe in the beginning we were this weak. We were weakened when the Holy Spirit took control of these bodies. And it was to subjugate us under His. And so they had control over this body. It says the force within us was not right. Something changed within us. She says, you use your strength over me now. You use it against me. And so there's a testing here. Greater testing on women than men. And there's a good reason for that. Now, what does it say? I said this here. For the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law. So we're talking about Christ here. We're talking about the priesthood of Christ. And I've come to look at it that the error was so grave that mankind made that only the Father could correct this error. Only He alone could do that. And that's why it's called the Son made in the image of the Father. Because the Father was perfect. He never erred against His Spirit. He knew the Spirit gave Him life. And so this error was so grave, was so huge and massive, that only the Father, the Son made in the image of the Father, could correct this huge error that had been made, which was to reject the righteous Spirit and her principles in the beginning. Otherwise, Mother says to the daughter Zion, she says, we'll just get rid of the whole lot. We'll swipe all of mankind straight to hell, and we'll start again. We'll build a new heaven. We'll build a new body, one that's perfect and one that won't sin against us. And but I believe at that time, daughter Zion said, no. I know the oppression and the vexing and the scoffing that we're going to have to bear here to bring forth a perfect son. The daughters are going to have to bear that vexing, that oppression, that scoffing under the law. They're going to have to do that in order to bring forth a perfect son. And then they're going to bear it some more after again the truth gets once again tarnished by man-made law, iniquity framed by the law again, and it is. Because it says this, Colossians 2:20, since you died with Christ to the elemental spiritual forces of this world, why, as though you still belong to the world, do you submit to its rules? You are no longer of the Holy Spirit. You are no longer of Adam's man-made laws. You are of me, Christ says. So what's that word mean there? And you know, Christ says to His beloved in Jude 1. It's only one chapter. In Jude, He says to earnestly contend for the faith which was once given to you. The truth, which was once given to you. You are going to have to earnestly contend for it again, my sister, my beloved, my daughter of Zion, my key to the kingdom, the Spirit. That's what He's talking about. The daughter is the key of the kingdom. Keys of the kingdom. The keys of David. David has the keys to the kingdom. Christ has the key to the kingdom. That's His Spirit. That's the daughter. So for the priesthood being changed. So that word there changed is 3346. Well, what does it mean? This is actually one of the words given. A turncoat. Christ is a priest after the order of Melchizedek. That's why He's also called a kingly priest. Because it was the Father who is the great king who had to come to rectify this situation for His Spirit, who was about to wipe everything out of existence. She says, they won't follow my commandments. They don't want to follow after my daughters on. I'll wipe them out of existence and we'll begin anew. And Father says, we'll provide the sacrifice. He'll be made in my image. He'll look just like me because you'll shape him that way. And she did. The mother provided the son. And it was on the same image of the Father. He was perfect. The Father never fell. It was the Son that fell. Right? It was the Adam that fell. That new creation that fell. And so that word there that we were looking at, changed, in Hebrews 7:12, is Hebrew number 3346, and it means a turncoat. I transfer, I go over to another party, I desert, I change. I transpose, to transpose. Two things, one of which is put in place of the other. I turn one thing into another. I transfer oneself or suffer oneself to be transferred, to go or pass over, a turncoat. So is Christ a turncoat? Who was he turncoat against? Well, number one, he was a turncoat against the Pharisees, who was trying to impose man-made law, wherein sin is imputed to us. Iniquity has been imputed by that law. He was a turncoat against that. He says, no. I'm not going to die for your man-made law. He sums the laws of heaven up in two. He says, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul. He says, wisdom will be justified of her children, he of whom is one. Zechariah 3 says he is as a brand plucked from the burning, and then in Jude he tells us we're brands plucked from the burning. Well, what's he talking about? He's talking about his spirit. That's what he's talking about. So the Pharisees hated him because he wouldn't back their man-made laws. But Christ backed the laws of heaven. Daughter Zion. That's what he backed. If he was a turncoat, he was a turncoat on the horse spirit that tickled every man's ears in existence, saying, he's God, he. And for those men out there who says the female image God is a false image? Really? You are without excuse not to understand the Godhead. I manifested it in things that I created for your eyes to bear witness to. Well, it's male and female. It's not he. So I'd say this image here, you're calling it a false image. You're calling me a false image. And yet I exist in this creation. And it's actually refuting yours as a lie. It's saying your theology is a lie. The fact that I exist. Because if you're saying the female mother Godhead, half of the Godhead is a lie, then you're saying, I'm a lie. My existence is a lie. And yet I still exist. It's male and female. It's not he as the Godhead. Where do you see that in creation? You are without excuse. Go back to the garden. The body was formed. The breath of life was breathed. That was the woman. She was then removed. You are not the bride if you're male. You're not. You're part of the body. That's what you're part of. Guess what comes out next? The feminine, the bride, the glory, the last thing created. And men tend to view that as a woman being created. Well, Adam was the epitome, and the woman just come out. Oh no, creation continued onward to the glory. Her, Eve. Actually, she wasn't Eve. Genesis 5 tells us God called their name Adam in the day that God created them. And when God called for Adam in the garden, God wasn't calling for the man who the head. No, God was calling for them both. But Adam couldn't speak up fast enough because he wanted to point. He wanted to pierce. He absolutely wanted to pierce him and that horse spirit that he had let in. That's what he wanted to do. So, Galatians 4:3. So also when we were children, we were enslaved under the basic principles of the world. Well, so why are we still acting as if we're under the elemental spiritual forces of this world? Why? Why do we act that way? You act like you still belong to the world. Do you submit? Why do you submit to its rules? They're man-made. Let's see what else we got here that I wanted to go over. Colossians 2:8. See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, which are based on human tradition and the spiritual forces of the world. That's the Holy Spirit, the principality of the power of the air. That's who we're talking about. Rather than on Christ. What's Christ's key? The righteous spirit, daughter Zion, who was rejected in the beginning. Adam didn't want a covenant with her. Her name was Adam. He sets her apart. He renames her Eve. This is what the nation of Israel represents, the glory. She was set apart. Israel was set apart, representing the woman, the glory that was no longer wanted, rejected. And the world can't come against her hard enough. They want nothing to do with her teachings, with her truths. They reject it. They reject the feminine. Guess, not half, I'm not sure how many, but many of the Messianic prophecies are yet to be fulfilled. Do you want to know why? Because those Messianic prophecies that are yet to be fulfilled is by the female half. That's right, daughter Zion, his partner, Christ's partner, his spirit, his key to the kingdom. And we're not going anywhere through that gate without this key of truth. Christ says, you'll not be found standing on Mount Zion holding the Holy Spirit's lies, because that's not what I died for. That's not what governs the new body or the new heavens. See, you have to go back to the allegories that were shown in 424. These two women are allegorical, representing two covenants. One a horse spirit, one a righteous spirit. Why? Why? They tell Eve slept with Satan. Oh, really? Shouldn't there be two men? Shouldn't there be? There is. Yeah, there is. And there's two women that are representing the covenant, the horse spirit, the righteous spirit. And Mother says in Isaiah 59, I give you in covenant my spirit, with the words. And she was the last thing created. She represented the glory. But she was the glory rejected. Who Christ came as the second Adam to claim. He came to claim her. So it's on us to rise up. We're the keys of the kingdom. That's what we are. We did a thorough study on that. The first 4 videos are a thorough study on the key of David. Absolutely showing you that the righteous daughters that were rejected was the key of David. He left the gate open, right? He allowed them to their rightful place, which was on Mount Zion, from whence the law issues from. Their job was to create the laws, which are laws of equity, righteous laws, good laws, wonderful laws, that govern the body. There was no violence committed under this law. There was no inequality committed in this law. All received the same treatment and governed by these laws of love. The law of love is the highest. Charity is the highest. And when you look that up, it's love. Christ summed it up in 2, right? Love the Lord thy God, and then love your neighbor as yourself. Well, when you get looking into that word neighbor, you can get the idea that she really represented the rejected woman. So it's saying love your sister equally. Love your sister as yourself. She's equal to you. So what else did I want to read? So, of course, we have the key of David. We've talked about the key of David extensively. And in Revelation 3:7, we have that mentioned. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write these things, saying, He that is holy, that is true, that had the key of David, that openeth and no one shutteth, and shutteth and no one openeth. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no person can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Whose name? Daughter Zion's name. Mother Yahweh's name. The feminine. Christ says you'll not enter into the new heavens. You'll not get your new body. We ain't got our new bodies. You know why? This is an old wine vessel. Can't hold new wine. We still got our old bodies. Colossians 2:16. Therefore let no one judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a festival, a new moon, or a Sabbath. For you died, and your life is now hidden in Christ and in God, not under the law. We're not under law. one body. 1 Corinthians 6:16. What? Know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? See, we're talking one body here. That's what Adam and Eve were called in the beginning. They were one body. Malachi addresses that again. Malachi 2. She says, I created one so that I might have a godly seed. Well, how do you have a godly seed? Well, that's with a righteous spirit. Right? And he rejected her. Malachi 2 tells you that. Go in and read Malachi 2. You don't believe me. So 1 Corinthians 6:16, what, know ye not that he which is joined to an harlot is one body? For two, saith she, it's mother speaking here, shall be one flesh. One flesh. Right? And yet Adam sets Eve out, the second Adam, and renames her Eve. Because he didn't want her. He didn't want a covenant with her. But she that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. You're one spirit. 19. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? Verse 20. For ye are bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Okay, and I wanted to read a couple of chapters here. Let's read, I like the entire chapter of Psalms 58. And I'm sorry, again, I can try to do a good video, and I want it formed just in such a way, and whenever I turn on the camera, it gets all distorted and out of the place. So I know I'm being thwarted, that's for sure. And I know there's very few watching my videos, and again, for the few that are actually taking the time to watch more than 5 minutes of them, I appreciate that. I really do. So thank you for watching my videos. I hope the Lord blesses you with them. I know I've been blessed with this new understanding of who Christ, my beloved, is, and that he didn't die to put a sinner over me. You know, men didn't die for me. Mankind didn't die for me. Christ died for me. And he was filled with the Spirit, the righteous Spirit. Men aren't filled with the righteous Spirit that govern you. They're sinners. They're in the flesh yet. And a sinner over a sinner. No. What's over us is the Spirit. The Spirit is to guide us and to lead us into all truths, each and every one of us. Men are not your head. They never were your head. They wrote that in there. It makes them happy. Kephale there is actually feminine. Well, it's a feminine because it's referring to the Spirit. The Spirit is over you. She guides us into all truths. Look at the heifer, the birth of the heifer. Come on, wake up. Oh, it's a mystery. We don't know why it's female. That's required to sanctify the mount. To be able to put the temple that has to be sanctified and cleansed by the heifer's ashes. Oh, but the feminine don't mean nothing. She's a false image. Oh, she's a false image. Male and female in the beginning, but she's a false image. We're just a rib. That's what we are. Psalm 58. Do ye indeed speak righteousness, O congregation? Do ye judge uprightly, O ye sons of men? Yea, in heart ye work wickedness. Ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. You know what you're going to find that word estranged there means when you go in? They actually turn to a harlot. They're estranged from their mother's womb. Not saying that the mother's always a righteous woman. But we're going back here a ways. That's what we're going back into history. The wicked are estranged from the womb, and even today, the law teaches them iniquity. They teach them hatred towards women. They teach them subjugation of women. They say, oh, you feminists, you can keep your laws of feminism today because they were man-made. I don't care how many whore spirit women you want to stick out in front of it and say, oh, you women. It's man-made all the way. Because you see, this feminism gives them exactly everything they want, and they get to point at her and blame her at the same time. Woo! Nice trick. Nice trick. Not my idea of feminism. And masculinism, that's existed since Adam fell. They just think it's okay because they wrote so many laws giving themselves permission by the Holy Spirit to say that it's okay. Now, verse 3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. This is chapter 58 of Psalm. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. Okay. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth. Guess what they got here? Her. They actually have it. Her ear. Huh? What? What? The serpent, her ear? Is this one of the spots that they chose to actually tell the truth? But they threw it in with so many other things that you just don't recognize the truth when you see it anymore? Verse 5, which will not hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. Verse 6, break their teeth. Oh God, we speak of the teeth here, but I think this here analogy to teeth are to the mountains. God refers to the he-goat rulers of this world, mountains, as the mountains of the world, as he-goats, which he's going to smash to pieces. So here she says, I'll break their teeth. Your rightful rulers are she-goats. That's why she's in the Abrahamic-Sarah covenant in Genesis 15:9. That's why you have a she-goat mentioned there, because they're the rulers of the world. They're your rightful mountains. And they're also the ones that you see that are cut out. They're cut out, but it says they're cut out without hands. This stone is cut out without hands. And that's in the book of Daniel. And that stone is cast on those toes, those rulers. And it smashes them. It breaks the feet all to pieces, right? These toes, these end-time rulers. And it says, then that stone grows into a mountain. And then what does it tell you in Genesis 49 of Joseph's blessings? It says, from thence will come the shepherd. It says shepherd, but it's a shepherdess. The stone of Israel. The stone. That's your spirit. And that's daughter Zion that smashes those toes all to pieces and then becomes a mountain. Right? Grows into a mountain. That's your rulers, your rightful rulers of the body. And that's your she-goats that you find in Genesis 15:9. She-goat. So it'll speak in the Old Testament. There's a coming judgment on the sheep and the goats, it says. And yet in the New Testament, we're going to separate the sheep from the goats. Well, you better get it right. If you're talking sheep and goats, or you're talking about the males and the males. You're not talking about the females even there. God dealt distinctly different with them both. Distinctly different. And we discussed that already. And it's interesting because I also wanted to include here, and I forgot to bring my book. And this won't pause for me and pick up another record. But it speaks to the effect when a guy was studying, I forget the dude's name, I forget the author's name, when I was looking at the Azazel goat, and how they had concluded that he believed that that was indeed a female goat. Your scapegoat is called your Azazel goat, all right, in Leviticus 17 or 16. And it's as is a female goat. Azel is strength, strong. And he said, well, going by this particular way that he was interpreting it, he believed it was a female indeed. But by this interpretation, he said, it tends not to make any sense because it's an allusion to the strength of God. Well, that's exactly what we've been talking about. The right hand of God, which is daughter Zion, which is the strength, which is represented by a flock of she-goats in Song of Solomon, which is also in Genesis 15:9. The she-goat's there. And the ram's there, which is Christ. You know, we're instructed to reason things out through the Spirit. Christ says, do not follow on vain traditions to show you the truth. You follow on the Spirit, and she will lead you into all truths. Okay. Verse 6 again. Break their teeth, O God, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions or lionesses. Verse 7. Let them melt away as waters which run continually. And when he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. Verse 8. As a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away, like the untimely birth of a child, that they may not see the sun. Verse 9. Before your pots, I get that right? Before your pots can feel the thorns, she shall take them away as with a whirlwind. She's the Spirit, she's the power that sits to the right hand of Christ. Shall take them away with a whirlwind, both living and in her wrath. As daughter Zion that strikes through her enemies in the day of her wrath. She's found standing or sitting next to Christ in Psalms 110. We know these three are a separate three. 3068, 113, and 136, and they are indeed a separate and distinct three. We're shown that example in Genesis 18. Verse 10 of Psalm 58, the righteous shall rejoice when she seeth the vengeance. She shall wash her feet in the blood of the wicked. This is daughter Zion. Actually, this is the bride. Verse 11, so that a man shall say, verily there is a reward for the righteous. Verily he or she that is a God that judges in the earth. Okay. So what was the other one we wanted to read? So we're putting a lot of different passages together. Okay. It's called Reasoning with the Spirit. And it's to try to flesh out some of the other videos. And it's really on you to go through and pick up the threads that you are able to pick up. Because we do see things differently. We are designed differently to see things differently because we all fit together differently, right? So the body is male. That's what it looks like. The body that's formed is male. And inside lies the spirit, the woman, who then comes out. And she is given a portion of his body. And he receives the remnant of her spirit. Now we're told that. Malachi 2 addresses that issue. All right, of how Adam, and I believe it does take you back to Adam, but it's symbolizing Judah and Israel, which is the female here, and Judah's your male. And it symbolizes, it shows you how he chose the daughter of a different God. That's what it tells you. And that's precisely what we were looking at. That's what we've been looking at, the truth. So Psalm 94 was another one. That's a good one to read. Yeah. Chapter 94. Lord God, to whom vengeance belongeth, O God, to whom vengeance belongeth. Show thyself. Lift up thyself. Thou judge of the earth, and render a reward to the proud. Verse 3. Lord, how long shall the wicked triumph? How long shall they utter and speak hard things, or very mean things, arrogant things? And all the workers of iniquity boast themselves. They break in pieces thy people, O Lord, and afflict thine heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger, and murder the fatherless. Yet they say, the Lord shall not see, neither shall the God of Jacob, actually I think that's the God of Israel, shall regard it. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but this is a really good chapter. Let's pull down to verse 20 again. Shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frameth mischief by a law? They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn the innocent to blood. I believe that's showing us what they do to these righteous daughters under the law. That's what they were doing, particularly with the law of bitter waters. They gathered themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemned the innocent blood. That's what they were doing, using the law to do. Verse 22, but the Lord is my defense, and my God is the rock of my refuge. 23, and she shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, the Lord our God shall cut them off. So, what we're waiting for now, we're waiting on the manifestation of the glory, the transformation of these daughters of Zion that will be empowered to go forth. They're the keys to the kingdom. Without them, we're not going nowhere. What else did I want to share with you? Yeah, it speaks of the ordinance of the law, which only stood in vain ordinances. We're really looking at the physical, trying to esteem itself greater than the spiritual. That's what it's really about. That's what it's about. And Zechariah 4, Mother Yahweh says, not by might nor by power. She say, not by your physical, but by my spirit will all of these things be accomplished, because in the spirit is where the power lies. And it is the spirit of truth, it is the spirit of righteousness, the daughter that was rejected in the very beginning, coming back full circle, back to her rightful place. Because Christ died on the cross, he says, she's my beloved, she's the reason I live. And there'll be no horror spirit entering into my new heavens, he says. There'll be none. It'll be my beloved that opens that gate. It will not be another. It will not be the horror spirit with all of that guile of fallen man, fallen Adam, and that horror spirit's teachings that tickles his ears and tells him he and tells us that our female image is a false image. No, you're the liars. You're the ones that's been lied to. And you perpetuate that lie because it tickles your ears. And it speaks of vanity. It speaks of worthlessness. These lies of worthlessness that comes from these sons of worthlessness. These sons of Belial. Who in the heart of hearts, they know what they're preaching. They're preaching exaltation of the physical and the masculine. That's what they're preaching. And Christ says, I didn't do that. They called him a turncoat. They crucified him because he wouldn't step in line. He was different. He's truly different. He's special. He's God. And he's God because he held this spirit within him. The spirit of truth. The daughter that is his other half of the Messianic prophecies that's about to be fulfilled, which they deny. See, it's been designed, this snare has been designed so that they try to keep our head shoved down. They're trying to stop the head from picking her head up. They don't want you picking your head up and seeing the truth. Well, none of their theology is adding up. None of it. You can take it all out of play quite easy. You can. But you have to certainly study the words and where they shifted it around and what they did, and we know it to be true. Look at men. They love to point at us. They love to blame us. They love to tell us they're our heads. They live for it. I don't think most of them would know what to do with themselves if they didn't have us to blame for everything. And yeah, there's the horror spirit and the righteous spirit, but you understand there's fallen Adam and there's Christ. Big difference. Big difference. Big difference in the teachings and in the theologies that subjugates women under the law. A woman can't speak in a church, so saith the law. Well, what law? The spiritual law doesn't say that. Guess what says it? The civic law says it. Again, you come back to the physical. It's the physical that subjugates us. So it says, why do you live as if you are still subject to the elemental spiritual forces of this world? The elemental principles of this world. You're no longer subjugated by them. This is how we're going to break this yoke of the flesh. This is how we're going to break it off. By understanding truth, who we are, who Christ our beloved is. That's how we're going to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go. I'm at almost 45 minutes. Thanks for watching my video. Love you, Nick. Another video for you. If I post it. So God bless y'all. In your own studies. I know many of my sisters brothers and sisters are going through hard times. And difficult times here at the end. It can feel like it's a daily struggle sometimes, because you see the end. You see it, right? So I do pray for them. I pray for y'all. I do love y'all. Forgive my tone, my attitude at times. You understand, it's not directed at the righteous. This is directed at the enemies of God. And in John 17, the Lord prayed for those that would be His. The Lord didn't pray for everybody. The Lord prayed for those that would be His. And so we certainly don't know who's going to be His. But at the same time, we know the enemy is there. And so those are the ones that I speak of, and I speak to, and I address. And so I love you again. Take care. And for any who watches my video, a big thank you.